Hey, we are live now. Let's see how many people will show up.
Yeah.
So it's very normal. I have like less than 10.
No, that's fine. I mean, it really is. First of all, I would like to say that it's really amazing that you have kept this going even in these times. So yeah.
I change it later. Yeah, we'll do this. By the way, one of your colleague is like organizer of the Ministry of Testing, right?
Which one is it?
There's a new meetup called Ministry of Testing.
Oh,
Do you
is it?
know about
Oh,
it?
are you
So
talking
so
about anything?
hi Azizi Amiru. We'll start at 8:30 sharp. So now we just
I can't see
talk.
people. Where are people?
You can't see. Oh, because I casting to two channels. I casting
Okay.
to Facebook and YouTube. So how it going to work later is you know like I'll pick their comments and you can answer them.
Oh, sure.
So your source of truth will be the screen.
Okay, fine.
Yeah. So the Ministry of Testing, I was giving sharing in one of their previous meetup. So yeah, they are talking about automated testing now.
I think
And
I know who you're talking about, but yeah, we have been going a little bit more extreme on the automated testing. In our company, we have really made that as one of our go-to goals to do automated testing, and I think we are 80% there already. So it really helps, do quick Android releases and stuff like that.
okay. So you start working in office already, or you still working from home mostly?
Yeah, so our office has like opened up until the end of the month, but until the end of the month, it's like TBC, where like one section of the office goes and the other section of the office is like working from home. Um, but yeah, slowly and steadily, like people are starting to like go again and see how things are going. So
Hmm.
I go whenever it's my turn to go, which is like Monday, Wednesday, Friday generally. But
Okay,
it's more on the department. It's not a hard and fast rule.
I see. Hello, Rachel. Okay, I think it's 8:30. Let's start now.
Yeah, let's go.
So thank you for those show up. So today is our KL React first online meetup. So today our overview mainly three things. First we have talks from Abhishek, then talks from me, and last I will give a brief update about the React community, which are the tools and updates. So yeah, so don't waste your time. We will start with Abhishek talk now. So yeah,
Okay, I hope everyone's able to see my screen. No, Malcolm.
yes,
Okay,
I can see your screen.
um, hoping we are able to see my screen. Yeah, there we go. Thank you, Malcolm, for doing that. Um, Before we start, let me give a brief introduction about myself. My name is Abhishek Prasad, and I'm a software engineer at Fave. Those of you who know the company. Um, I also like to do open source contributing sometimes. It's only sometimes. It's not a lot. I try to maintain and basically just drive product decisions for an open source organization named DrupalForce. You guys can check it out, and the organization link is right here. And you can find me at my website, which is here. So the slides will be available to all of you, and you all can like check it out and go through the entire thing. So the talk today is going to be about accessibility first, thinking about the entire spectrum. So going ahead, I want to set some expectations right, and we're going to talk about like what this talk is not going to be about, because I feel like it's very essential to tell everybody like how much we'll be exploring and how much we are just going to leave onto like other people. So this talk is not going to be about like a very extensive dive into accessibility principles, because the time is too short, and also it's a very massive and huge field. This is not going to be an in-depth session of the concept. I would like to give you an initial idea about what accessibility is and how we can go through about with this, and how we can include this in our development cycle. And of course, absolute mastery on the topic with a 30-minute talk. It's kind of like an elixir if you think that you can just get everything in one talk. But then again, the whole point of this talk is to get you more interested into practicing these principles that are there. So now that we talked about what this talk is not going to be about, let's see what this talk is going to be about. We will explore what is accessibility, why we should think about it, and hopefully nothing goes wrong. We are going to try some live coding, kinda. Let's see how that works out. Hopefully you all have your speakers, because I'll be using some tools which will need speakers. Okay, so let's go and dive straight into what is accessibility, right? Okay, so this is a very generic description of accessibility, but the web or the internet was designed not for just one specific, it was designed for everybody. It was designed for the entire spectrum. And that entire spectrum includes people who have disabilities in hearing, they can't see, or they have a cognitive issue. Now, what web accessibility is about is that it uses some principles, tools, and some design knowledge to basically make things very simpler for all of these people. And when I say that, some of us are going to think that, okay, maybe this is like a very small minority, but let's go into it and see what the demographic is and why we need it. So according to Google, of course, we all live off of Google. According to Google, 15% of the world's population suffers from some sort of disability. This does not include visual or cognitive disability, but it's just like 15% of the world is in some ways affected by this. 285 million people are affected with visual impairment. Now, visual impairment just doesn't include blindness. It also includes people who have symptoms of cataract, or people who have low vision. By low vision, I mean people who are hitting about like 60 plus. So their vision automatically goes down. And so let's look at some data, right? We are going to focus on the Southeast Asia region / India. Yeah, sure. So we're going to add on all three of these numbers. I mean, I have already added on, and it comes at about 96, 97%. Not percent, sorry, 96, 97, which we can round off to 100,000. Let's just do that, right? 100. Let's just do that. So all of these are per million population. Now, let's just say 100 is the 100 million is the number for 100,000, not 100,000 per million is the number for Southeast Asia region, right? And I checked in Google, 31 million is the official population of Malaysia. Now, if we try to multiply that with the same thing, we are going to end up at somewhere about, I don't know, a million-ish people, 1 million people, right? Now, let's say you only make your website accessible and amazing for 30%. Let's just say 30%. You will hit about 350,000 people, give or take, which is, I would say, a lot. If you can make a website accessible for 33% of a general population, which is going to be 300,000, that's a lot. And if you are able to convert your product into something for those accessible people, that is amazing. So I'm just using 33% as like a very base goal of this entire stat attack, I would say. So how should we tackle this whole point of accessibility, right? So there are generally two schools of thoughts. One is the design approach. Now, obviously, I'm not a designer, clearly, but thanks to a couple of designing inputs from a couple of design-centric people in my colleague as well as like the friends that I have. So using accessibility, you should always keep accessibility as like the bottom base of a pyramid, and then build usability on top of it. What I mean by that is, let's look at this example. Okay, let me use some like cool pointer. Oh, look at that. Anyway, so when you look at this text, you can, if you read it, if you do not see this and you read this, you'll be able to understand that, okay, 50 points, I have 50 points, and there are 250 extra points that I need to have. Now, this is the accessible part, which is easy to read and can be read easily by any screen reader. So next is when you build usability on top of it, is like a small progress bar. It adds on to like a more visual effect for people, and it gives like more of like these dots appear to be as checkpoints that you can hit. Gives us more like a need for speed kind of feeling. I don't know. It certainly gives me that kind of thing. So building usability on top of accessibility always kind of helps take care of our demographic of people who we want to help, who are not able to see properly, right? Going next onto it is contrast. This part I'm not even able to understand what it means, and I would assume that with my glasses I can see properly, but still even then I cannot see it properly. Here in this section of the app, I can see back, but it's only because the cognitively, I think that chevron left is like a back sign to the previous screen. So I'm just going to think that this icon, which points to the left side, is going to be like the screen that was before I hit this screen. And the second thing is this button, which is there. It just doesn't suit well with people who have, let's say, I don't know, about 20% of our vision, which is like very normal. Since if I wasn't wearing these glasses, I have a vision of negative 700, which is again not really a good thing. But then again, that's a disease that I have, and although with the power of minus 700, I won't be able to see, but it generally helps knowing that the contrast is different and there's something different on that screen. Going on to the next is when we show data to people. A lot of people are colorblind, and they will not be able to distinguish between colors like red and green. And then I'm sorry, my designer friends, because I don't know these colors. Whatever these colors are, brown and orange. Sorry for saying brown and orange if it's not brown and orange. So when we design, when we show graphs like these, it's very difficult for people who have color blindness or something like that to be able to distinguish between these data. So what they do is an alternative can be adding some extra pattern to that so that people are able to distinguish between all different graphs that we show them, and also to put text next to the data, and these texts have to be, again, according to the second thing that I showed, like high contrast. This has to be like that so that we can distinguish exactly what these data mean. So we talked a lot about, not a lot, but then again, it was just 3 slides. But then again, we talked the basic principles of how we can do things design-wise. Now, let's look at something that we developers or the people who have joined us who are developers can look into this, into your day-to-day daily front-end skill set, right? So the first thing that we can do is to educate ourselves with the guidelines that are there, because to be honest, the entire community around accessibility is quite huge, and it's like a lot of people have extensively put a lot of effort into standardizing these things. So the first thing we can do is to educate ourselves with the guidelines first, because they really, really help. The second is to use plugins. And I'm going to show later, we can look into some of the websites that we have. I'll specifically look into Google, and we'll use these accessibility plugins to see exactly how many errors there are, if there are any errors. The third thing is to use voiceover-friendly websites. Now, if you go to this link that I provided, you will see that all of the elements, they are very voiceover friendly. By voiceover friendly, let me give me a moment to tell a couple of things. Blind people, or like people with vision disability, they use keys like tab, command, control, arrow keys, and shift. That's it. That's all they can use to differentiate between whatever there is on the screen, right? So you have to think in a way like that. And for you to think like that is for you to try out voiceover. Now, there are 2 ways in which we can do that. MacBook provides like a really nice voiceover utility. It provides this voiceover utility in which you can use this to basically play around with it. But today we are not going to use voiceover utility because we don't want utility or like voiceover over everything. I will focus on a particular plugin that I have on my Chrome/Brave, whichever you're using. So it kind of reads out everything that's there on the screen. And the third the fourth one is like a quick checklist that you can go and check. Of course, you'll find these links. So let's go and look into some examples. Hopefully things don't go wrong. So let's look at this thing. It's like a very basic website that I created. Excuse the pun that's here. It's a forest, and I tried to be a bit fun. Anyway, let's not go into that. So I'm going to activate something called Chromevox, right? This particular plugin, or like this particular extension is something which people with disability use. So I'm going to activate that.
Accessibility is important. Who am I services contact learn more header.
So
accessibility is important. Internal link.
Thank you. So these are exactly how people with disability will be able to navigate to a website. So we have to understand that we cannot see anything, but what we hear is what we can see, and it's very uncomfortable, I understand, but because there are certain principles that have been already put, they know how to do it, but it has to be according to the rule that we are making, right? So give me one sec. All right, cool. So we have our code here, and we have
window accessibility tab.
There you go. So let's look at this thing example by example, right? There are 3 things, 3 main practices that are there. Now, the first practice is, I'm just going to show this, is
accessibility is important. Section 1. button. This header accessible list with 3 items. Who am I? List item.
So you see, it says like a list with 3 items. Now, again, I will ask you to understand that you cannot see any of this. And you hear that it says list with 3 items. You're going to be confused, like, okay, it's like a list like top to bottom, or like a left to right, or what is it? But as people who are gifted with visual prowess, I would say, because it's a privilege to have, we can see that it's more like a navigatory thing that we can use to navigate between different sections of the website. So the first thing we can do is to syntactically make things right. Now you'll see that I use like a UL. If I put like a basic nav element, I save it.
Window accessibility. Accessibility is important.
Okay,
Internal link.
The style is kind of messed up. Give me a sec to like take care of the stylings. All right. 100.
Window accessibility tab. Accessibility. Accessibility is important. Internal link.
So when we go next to the navigatory section of the website, you'll hear something different.
Navigation list with 3 items. Who am I? List item.
So it says navigation list, which is kind of cool. Now that I know that that particular section of the website can be used to navigate through different sections of the website, and it kind of gives me like a really nice, not a complete, but then again, it gives me a good map to the rest of the website on how I can go through with that. The second thing we would like to look into is not
services list item. Contact. Learn more about accessibility. Heading 1.
So you see, it kind of tells about the content first, and then it tells you about the syntax that there is, like H1, H2, and all of that.
The accordion. Heading 2.
Now, the thing that comes to an issue is when something like an accordion is there, or like a collapsible or expandable thing. So
section 1 button.
So you see, it says section 1 button. I don't know what it does, right? So it says a button, but when I press enter,
section 1 button,
you see it expands and it closes down. So I don't exactly know what's happening except the fact that it's a button.
Section 1 button.
So where we can make a change is we go to our code, and this is where we start doing some basic but really cool accessibility principles. Now, there is something called ARIA, which is an accessibility rule, which is used by us developers to design accessibility friendly websites. Now, obviously, the things that I'm going to type, I don't expect anyone to understand at the moment. But when you go ahead and look into more of these attributes, you'll see what exactly they mean. Now, the basic ones that I can tell you is ARIA expanded. It's just going to, if we try to read through it, it should say that this section is not expanded. Now, if this section is not expanded, which part of this entire page does it control? So we have to write something called ARIA control. And let's just say section 1, sect 1. Let's just say sect 1. Now, which is sect 1? The sect 1 is this particular div that's there, and we set the ID to sect 1. Now, what happened here is, so we know that this particular button, it controls this particular section. Now, if it controls this particular section, we have to set what this section is. So we say, we kind of put it as a role of region, where we say that this particular button controls this region. And so this region is, so it's like a two-way kind of street. If we define here, we also have to define which what particular button or what particular thing controls this div. So we have to go and say that this aria is, is labeled by, and we give a name. Let's say we say btn1. But again, the question comes, what exactly is btn1? So the button is the section 1 button. So what we do is that we just set the ID to btn1. Now, when we do that, excuse me. All right, so I've received a request to zoom in. Hopefully you guys can see. Give me 1 second. Let me just move this section. So yeah, hopefully you guys are able to read through whatever is there. I apologize if you can't see anything at the moment. But to go through what we did is we added like a aria expanded as false because we cannot expand, because we are trying to predefine this as like an expandable section, and we are saying that it's not expanded. The aria controls is supposed to be like which section does it control, this particular button, which section does it control. So we set an ID of sec1, which refers to the aria controls. Now, the next thing that I said was that this role of region, like this region, this is the entire region, we have to have like a two-way communication between both of them, right? So we put like aria labeled by btn1, and this btn1 is this particular button. So now if I save this, all right, and then we go to our
Window accessibility tab.
All right.
So, Window StreamYard tab.
All right.
Window accessibility section 1, accordion heading 2.
All right. So I refreshed the page, and I'm going to go into section 1. Just listen to what it says, right?
Section 1, button collapsed.
It says button collapsed, which makes us understand that, oh, it's collapsible. It can expand, it can collapse. Now, the reason why it happened is because we put collapse, like aria expanded as false here. It doesn't expand, right? So,
Window accessibility tab.
All right. So we would expect that when you press enter and it expands, it's gonna share that it's expanded.
Section 1, button collapsed.
So it still says button collapsed, which is something we didn't really want. So this is where JavaScript comes in. We have to set a few things in JavaScript. Now, for this very simple example, if I scroll down, obviously I have like commented them out. So these are the attributes that you can set, which is exactly what we set here as aria expanded as false and true. So all I'm doing is when the accordion expands, I'm setting the aria expanded as true, and when the accordion collapses, I'm setting the expanded as false. Now, when we save this, and so as soon as I switch and I reload, we should be able to see some change there.
Accessibility section 2 button section header. Accessibility is important.
Yeah, so this is how tough it is for people who cannot see to navigate through the entire thing.
Section 1 button collapsed.
Yeah. Now, if everything goes well, guys, we have put effort in for the live coding.
Section 1 button expanded.
There we go. You see section 1 button expanded. So these are some very small things we can do. And if I press enter again,
section 1 button collapsed.
It goes to show button collapse. And if I press enter again, it's going to say button expanded. Now, when it says button expanded,
section 1 button expanded,
I know that there's a content inside here. I really don't want to do this, but then again, like just to show, right? It's gonna like rap better than Eminem, the entire lorem ipsum dollar summit thing.
Lorem ipsum dolor sidomet consector de piscising elit. Okay. Section 1 button expanded.
We don't want much of that. So let me just collapse this button.
Section 1 button collapsed.
All right. So we took care of the expansion and things like that, right? let's go into let's go deeper into our page and see how we like the experience.
Lorem section run forest run heading 2.
Yeah, so the lorem ipsum that you heard was the accordion between. So yeah, that's a thing. Like, since we're hiding and we are basically just using the CSS properties, right? Here in instance, that's why, excuse me, it's going to read that. Now, let's say we are in this heading called run forest run, and we go into this image.
Image.
It just says image, where we have no idea what this image is. Now, you have to understand people with, let's say, color disabilities or low vision, or even blind people, they can imagine colors. They just cannot see at the moment, but they can imagine it, right? So we have to use that particular property. And let's just say we go to our page, and in our image, we see that there's an image, obviously. But this is where the alt property comes into handy. And I know people who have used React. If you do not put alt, or like alt text, it's going to throw an error in your console, and you're going to see a big yellow thing that you don't like. And it would say that, oh, you have to like say something about the image. And this is where it helps. And React has done a lot of things to help with syntactical issues, as well as these alt issues to take care of accessibility. Now, what happens is, if you do not have a proper parent-child syntactical rule, which you can find.
Window accessibility tab.
Okay, so which you can find. I'm gonna go and show it to you later, but you can go to whatwg.com to see what are these rules. But let's put something which will make someone understand what this image is about. And we can see that the image is probably about like a green forest. Okay. Yeah, I think that's good enough. So if I put green forest and save it, and I go to my my window and I refresh it.
Window accessibility tab. Accessibility section 3. Lorem ipsum run forest run heading 2.
Okay, so we have managed to get to the heading. Now we're just gonna go hover over this particular image and see if it says green forest.
Green forest.
There we go. So these very many attributes are essential to help people who do not have the privilege of being able to distinguish what this is, to understand what this is by using tools like Chrome Vox or like VoiceOver. Now, to continue on with the talk, I'm just going to disable Chrome Vox.
Chrome Vox is now inactive.
All right. So what I was talking about, if we go to Google, all right, I don't know why it's not going. Yeah, if you go to Google and use something called Web AIM, right? When we look into it, it's like an accessibility tool evaluation kind of thing, where you can evaluate how accessible your website is. Now, having errors is fine, because you see even like companies like Google, and you'll see that in every company, no particular website is like 100% accessible. So there are going to be some errors, and if you go to details, you'll be able to see, and when you click on them, all right, one sec, when you click on them, you'll be able to see where exactly these issues are, which is here. When you click on it, it exactly shows you what the issue is. You click on code, it even tells you the code, what exactly is wrong here, which is this one. And yeah, I'm not able to understand exactly what it means, but then again, it goes ahead and tells you what exactly the issue is, and you can use Google to fix Google's ARIA standards, which is, yeah, it works. So let me just disable it quickly and go back to our topic. Yeah. All right, let's go into present. No, the wrong one. Let's go into present. So what I shared was like a very basic example of what you can do and what you can use to make lives easier for, let's say, the 300,000 people that you are designing for in Malaysia, just Malaysia specific, right? I would like to conclude this talk by giving all of you like proper links and tools to that I researched and I kind of understood. So these are the links, like a bunch of links which you can spend your weekend to basically just go crazy with it, play around with it, and yeah, these are like really interesting topics that you can go on. Especially this uxdesign.cc. That's a really nice blog that you guys should be able to subscribe to, and of course it has a lot of interesting topics. If you're a front-end engineer, as well like a full-stack engineer, it doesn't matter. So yeah, even there's this YouTube channel. Basically, it goes and educates you about how you can use this ARIA guidelines and all of that. So yeah, that kind of concludes my talk. And I would like to end this talk by saying that we at Fave are still hiring, but then again, with the catch of sorta, is during these times we have paused our hiring for a bit, but it doesn't mean that we are not going to hire in the future. But you can still send your resumes. You can go to the Fave's career page and apply from there, or you can send resumes to me. I've provided my email here. You can do that for internships as well as full-time roles. As well as you can go and follow me on Twitter, and we can have a chat there. You don't even have to follow me; we can just chat there. So yeah, that's kind of what I wanted to bring about in this talk. Hopefully, it brought some interest in front-end engineers or engineers who are interested in building things like these, or like a framework. Who knows? You can write an npm module for converting an HTML to like a really nice accessible thing. So yeah, that kind of concludes my talk, and we will go into Q&A if Malcolm's here. And yeah, to Q&A, guys.
Yeah.
I'll only be able to tell you the basics.
Yeah, we don't have much question.
We have done because
but yeah,
with accessibility and everything, I think our app is going through a major revamp throughout this entire year, and we have put accessibility in a very high standard for us. So this entire process is like a learning process for every one of us, and we're really glad to be building something like that for the entire spectrum. So yeah, let's go into the Q&A and see if people have any questions.
yeah, sure. Thanks Abhishek for the sharing. Yeah, it's very nice. Can you hear me? Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, cool. Yeah. Thanks for your sharing. So I, as a host, I guess I can ask my question first. Yeah. So I will ask my first question towards this accessibility, because personally I also very into accessibility also. I actually also do an internet sharing before this. So my first question to you is that in your experience, right, what do you think would be like the low hanging fruits that people can start improving, maybe like tomorrow, that they can start look into the application, the things that can improve in terms of accessibility?
Yes. So this is one thing that I realized, and it's something that even I had a very, when I looked at it, I was like, oh, I should change this like right now. So when you have like drop downs, when you hover over those drop downs and it drops down, and then you can like select your let's just say a location, right? You go to see that, oh, this particular product or this particular idea is available in this city. So when you click on it, there's like a drop down of cities that are there. Now you'll be surprised, and the people join, like if you use Chromebox and you try to like navigate through those like very basic things, right? If you try to do that, it's sometimes, in my experience, most of the times it just breaks. Like the Chromebox just fails, and the drop down just goes back up, and it's not really that friendly. So I think something as basic as drop down and your front landing page, you should look at the things that are hidden, and so the initial load when things are hidden and then they show up. So these very small things are very confusing for people who cannot see those amazing JavaScript things that we all love. So if people cannot see those, when people cannot perceive those things, it's really difficult for them to understand.
Okay. I think now we'll go through the question from the audience. So we'll go through the first one, which is from Chi Leong. So I'm not sure. Can you see the question?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, this is a really cool feature. I didn't know. I missed the. Okay, so the question is from Chi Leong Chow. I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing your name. I'm trying my best. I'm sorry. I missed the early part. Sorry if that is covered. My question is how much visual compromise I had to make for accessibility, or it's just a switch of the mindset. Interesting question. I would like to. I mean, I can say something about this, but then again, I don't think I can understand this question really properly. But I'm assuming what Young means is that is it just a mindset that we have to change amongst us developers, or how much compromise do we have to do as users to make things more accessible?
I guess Chi Leong question is having a like he was having the impression that when you make things accessible, maybe you need to make things less sexy. I guess that's what he means by visual compromise.
Okay.
Yeah.
So here's the thing, the thing is, if you build on top of accessibility, it's gonna be sexy. The design that I shared for the 50 points and everything, usually it's like it's like any other product. You have to make trade-offs. You have to kind of think about how much of the product is accessible and how much is not. If the basic, let's say for Fave, it's like buying deals, right? Now, if someone who has disabilities, if he or she or that person is able to buy these deals, then that's that's all the user journey that we care about. But at the same time, we also have to see that is it visually that amazing for someone to go through the whole user journey. So it's like again, that's a very nice question, and I think that it's something that we all should ask before starting our sprints, whoever is into agile stuff. So we have to take into considerations like which are the sections of the website that we want people to access and which are the ones that are like an add-on. But it really helps if we have accessibility as the base and then we build on top of it. So yeah, it's more like a little bit of a different approach, I would say, but it doesn't hurt to even try from the very beginning. It kind of brings you into a into a way of thinking a little bit differently than you would think otherwise.
Okay. I think even though the question is not directed to me, I would like to add my point of view as well.
Yeah,
So I feel like accessibility is not is both, like it's about your mindset, your design mindset, as well as the way you code. So yeah, you can approach things from like many phases of accessibility. And in terms of like visual compromise, I feel like you can avoid visual compromise, but it means that extra efforts. So because many accessibility, many times we have some special tag, like you can add area label, which is like you have a text that label some HTML, but the label for people using a browser normally they don't see the area label, but for like just an Abhishek demo, like it will read to the a blind user. So you see from what Abhishek showed, there's like zero visual compromise, but it means like additional effort from the developer side that we just add those things. So yeah, blind people can understand what we are building.
Yep, exactly. These attributes are there for us to exploit and to build things for everyone.
Yeah, so we'll go to the next question. So it's a question on YouTube. So is web access harder for the visually impaired or hearing impaired?
I would say it's kind of harder for hearing. So I'm assuming that you mean that these are mutually not inclusive. They are like different kind of people, like hearing impaired, and then there are visual impaired. Now, for visual impaired people, if they are not unfortunate enough to be like, if they are not hearing impaired, I really hope that's the case. So we can use the hearing or the audio to guide them on how to go through the website, right? But if it's hearing impaired, I think that's where the whole design side of things come in, is where you visually guide the person through the entire user experience, which is the normal flow of things, how we perceive and how we push users to go through our product. But I would say for visually impaired, it's a little bit harder because they have to, like I said, when you look at nav and everything, right, they have to hear and interpret what exactly is there. They don't have much idea about what exactly is there, what are the elements, but they have to interpret based on these accessibility principles, which they have to study in order to go through the entire website, through the entire web, right? Like they would have to know the principles first, and then they would have to assume or hope that us developers are building things, taking them in consideration, which is kind of like a double-edged sword. You have to like hope as well as you have to see if it works out. So I would say for visually, it's a little bit more harder.
Yeah. Okay. There's no more question for now.
All right.
I think everyone, if you still have questions regarding accessibility, you can still post in the comment. So at the end of at the end of our session today, if you have more questions, then we may still answer a question.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's all for this talk for now. Thanks, Abhishek. Don't go offline. Maybe later I will pull you in again.
All right, all right. I'll just stop sharing my screen first.
Okay, Ken. Thanks. So so now it's my turn. So now it's a second session today. The next talk, I will talk about TypeScript, effective TypeScript. So I'm gonna share my screen. Okay. So yeah. So I will start my talk. Effective TypeScript, 7 ways to improve your TypeScript. So I very seven ways. This is a very specific 7 ways, which I think is something that you can actually apply. You can actually apply tomorrow in your TypeScript code base. So yeah, let's start. First is my first suggestion of TypeScript is a prefer precise alternative than string type. So what does it mean? So I will do some example to show. So this is typically our TypeScript type. So let's say I have a product, then product I have a name, I have a verbal stocks with numbers. Then after that I have a type. So my type can be physical or digital. So it seems fine because this is what the backend guy told us. The type is a string, and then after that we use this type, and then we construct a products on front end, and we pass digital, and there's no error. So actually here it should throw an error because we have a typo, right? Because type can be lowercase physical or lowercase digital, but not uppercase. But TypeScript cannot help us to catch that. So TypeScript is not about like not having error. It's also about like having error when you do something stupid. Okay, so how we can do? Well, it's very simple. You just change this to physical and digital. So now with this, we are more specific. So TypeScript know, hey, this is wrong. So it catch it for us. Okay, so this is the first use of first example of why we should use something more stricter than string. Okay, let me fix it. The next example I'm going to show you is some API. We use fetch. Okay, we use fetch. So here I have a fetch, then I have a type which is JSON, which can be JSON, and actually it can be text, it can be block. So now we do this, right? First, TypeScript is say, hey, this is not acceptable. So you may think, hey, what the hell, TypeScript? Why are you saying I'm wrong? I know what I'm doing. This type is JSON. Like dress JSON, you are happy, right? That JSON is happy. Why I pass you a type? You are not happy. Well, because the thing is, by default, when you do default parameter like this, TypeScript can only infer this is a string. Okay, so we need to tell TypeScript this is more specific than a string. So it can be JSON, it can be text, it can be block. Okay, then with this, then we can create our this code works. So this fetch data works, and also it also works like you fetch data something, then when you pass the wrong parameter, let's say you put text, then TypeScript will know, hey, you're passing the wrong one. Okay, then text will be happy. So this is my first suggestion on how to improve your TypeScript is when you see a type that is string, think of, hey, is it actually something more specific than a string? And then you should use a union like what I demo here. Okay, first thing. So this is very straightforward. The second idea is use this thing called scons to mark value as immutable and improve infer type. So this scons is called cons assertion in TypeScript. So what does it do? Well, it tells TypeScript this thing, something cannot be changed. Okay, let's see what I mean here. So using the example just now, if we have fetch data, then we have this, right? So this is a previous example, and then now I have some external data source. Okay, so this external data source is an array, then it has a URL, then it has a type telling us like, hey, what kind of data is in this API. And then what we want to do is we want to look through this array, and then we use the fetch data we used just now. So you will see TypeScript start complaining. It says, hey, argument of type string is not assignable to JSON text block. Okay, so what is happening here? So to know what happening, we hover over external data source. So let's see what TypeScript had infer. TypeScript thought what we infer here is a URL, is an array of URL and type. Okay, which is a very logical inference from TypeScript, because many times you don't want it to be too specific to say it is URL for this and type is JSON, because if it's so strict, right, you cannot push more value here. But now if I do this, right, then type, let's say is text URL. Yeah, you see TypeScript happy because TypeScript infer it as URL is string, type is string. That's why the push operation here is correct. But the thing is, TypeScript, this inference causing us the problem here, because it just know it's a string, it doesn't know it's a JSON and text only. So we need to tell TypeScript, hey man, this external data source, I'm not going to change it. So give me a very strict inference. So what I'm going to do is I'll just add this as cons. And when we add as cons, we are telling TypeScript, hey, I'm not going to change it array at all. So you can be as strict as you want. So you can see the infer type here now is very specific. It's a URL of this Pokemon, or the type is JSON, or it is that another URL and another type. From this TypeScript node, type is, it can be only be JSON and type. That's why this API called TypeScript has happy. So this is the first thing about ascons, which is very good. The second good thing about ascons in this example here is also like in React, like at least in React, I'm not sure about you using different framework. We would like to do data variable that is immutable, which means we don't want like mutate the data. So when you add ascons, right, TypeScript make sure nobody can mutate this data, which means if someone write this code, they try to push it, see they cannot push it anymore. Okay, push is not allowable on something that is that's immutable. So yeah, this ascons is something I really like it. So we can see an example. This is a very React specific. So let's say I have this is a custom hook. I have a state, right? Then I create a toggle function. Then I return it on and toggle. So this use on toggle, what it is using is you pass an initial Boolean value, then you will set the initial value of the state. Then after that, you get the whether it is the Boolean value and a function that toggle the Boolean value. Okay, and now I want to use it like this. Okay, on and toggle, and then I want to call toggle. And TypeScript will complain, hey, this toggle cannot call. Why? Because it says this value can be a Boolean or a function. Because when we here at the top here, we return a Boolean and a function. TypeScript usually what it does is you get an array, it will assume like, hey, this is an array consists of all those items. So you see, on can be a Boolean or a function. Toggle can be a Boolean and can be a function. But when we write this function, we know exactly, hey, the first parameter is always a Boolean, the second parameter is always a function. This data structure, by the way, is called tuple. So when this happens, you want to ask TypeScript to be, hey, I tell you, first is always Boolean, second is always function. What we can do? Well, the first thing we can do is we manually write the type definition. First is Boolean, second is a function. Okay, then this is happy. TypeScript is happy. But I don't like this because it means every time I have to manually write this type assertion. So the other option is our cons assertion. I can just use as cons. So when you use as cons, you tell TypeScript, hey, this two is always in this position. The first is always a Boolean, the second is always a function. With that, TypeScript able to infer, hey, the first one is Boolean, the second is function. So now the toggle is a function, then we can use it. So this is the second case I use very often of cons assertion. Okay, yeah. So hey, duplicate ignore this now error. It's just something to do with TypeScript modules. Okay, so we have tools. Then the third one, prefer union of types to types of union. So what does it mean? So let's go to the third one. By the way, in the beginning, I forget to tell you guys where to get the source code. So I'll comment here. My source code is at it.ly good.ts. Okay, I added in the comment, and also later on I will update the video description to include the links. Yeah, sorry, come back. Union of types. Prefer union of types than the types of union. So let's assume I'm doing e-payment business application, and we have this kind of data structure, a payment. Payment, we have different channel, cash, credit card, online banking. And then we always have amount. But the details is different for different channel, okay? Like cash, don't have bank name. Credit card has bank name and mask number, and online banking has bank name and bank account number. So this is our data structure. So using this data structure, I can create a function called get payment description. Okay, so it take this object and then it will get the description of it. For example, cash, I just cash and the amount. No? Credit card, and then I have payment amount. Then I have payment details, bank name, payment details, mask number. Yeah, you can see this funky question marks. This is a JavaScript features, which is also part of TypeScript. It's called optional chaining, because the details here, it can be undefined. So you put a question mark there, then TypeScript know, hey, if this is undefined, don't go further. Okay, so this is a function, and then I'm going to use this function get payment description. So I pass channel amount 500, and details is bank name and bank account number. So when I call this function, I actually call it wrongly, because credit card don't have bank account number. Credit card has mask number instead. Okay, this is the mask credit card number. Okay, so I have a typo, but TypeScript never helped me to fix. Never warned me. So yeah, TypeScript is useless. Okay, but the problem is not about TypeScript. The problem is the way we define our type. Our type is say question marks, and is all these are optional, but it never tell the relationship between the channel and the details. So this is a type. I would say like it is type of union. It's a type consists of a union. It consists of all these possibility. It consists many possibility. So this is not good. We want to replace it with union of types, which means I'm going to comment this out. I'm going to define a new payment. Union of type is I will define all the possible combinations separately. So I define channel is cash, and amount is number, then don't have details. Second possibility is channel is credit card, and details is into these two guys here. Okay. The third possibility is channel is online banking, and details is this. I know. Mask number. Yeah, it's a bit hard to see. My printer not working. Never mind. But you can see that it's I define separately, so it's very clear. When you have cash, you have amount, but you cannot have details. With a credit card, you must always have details and this. Okay, so this is no longer optional. It's always required. So now, I forget the amount should be in all. Okay. So first thing you see here, this function called actually catch the error now. It say bank account number is not allowed because credit card ma, so you need to fix it. It should be mask number. Okay. The second cool thing about using a union of types is in here, because now TypeScript know these are 3 separate scenarios where it check the channel is credit card. It know details is always there, bank name is always there. So here credit card, right? Our details is no longer possible to be undefined. So we no longer need the optional chaining anymore. And here also we no longer need the optional chaining anymore. Okay, so to compare, if I use a previous implementation. Okay, see here you complain one because the details can be undefined, which is what we tell TypeScript, right? Details can be undefined, but when we be more specific, tell TypeScript that is these three possible combination only. So TypeScript know, hey, when it's credit card details is no longer undefined. So yeah, it gives you stronger type checking, and yeah, it avoid the very annoying things that this cannot be happen, but TypeScript doesn't know. So this is the way we tell TypeScript. So this is the third rule: prefer union of types than the type of union. Okay. The fourth one is push null values to the parameter of types. So what does it mean? So we'll go to the next one. So we'll use back the example just now, but it looks a bit different now. So this is the original, looks at the original types just now, right? We have different channel and different combination. Okay, and then we will well, we have a same function, but it looks a bit different now. So now here is we want to get like all the bank details. We append it, bank country we append it, mass number append it, then expiry date we append it. Okay, and then we also try to call it. Okay, we'll try to call it. So what's wrong with this code? Okay, of course, just now the example previously is show like maybe here you typo, then you want to catch it. That's one thing. But here I want to tell you different thing. Another issues about the type here is you see we have so many question marks here. Like because this can be undefined and this can be undefined, so you need to do all those optional chaining. So every time I see many question marks, right, I feel that something is wrong here because is it really always optional? Sometimes we just like we lazy, we want to be safe, and then we want to be safe. That's why we mark everything is optional. But sometimes I just feel like it makes your code is like even unnecessary noisy. So this rule say push null value to parameter means if given a choice, you need to have optional parameter. Okay, optional what do you call property? Try to make it as at parameter as possible. The parameter means here lah, like near outside the type. So inside the like yeah, this is called parameter. This is inside. So instead of marking all the way here is question marks. Well, we should try to see, is it possible to make my type right? Is either have details or don't have details. Okay. Or the other way is you just make sure whether it's always has bank or don't have bank. But once you have bank, right, you always have the type in here. Okay. So the inside is so if I do this right, then first the checking is much more simpler in terms of our code, because now I know bank is either it is undefined. If I have bank, I am sure bank name and country is always there. So in terms of my code handling, right, what I can do is I can just do this. I just check is bank undefined or not. Okay, I do a null check. If it is not undefined, then I know bank name and country name is always there. Okay, so compared to the previous approach say, just to be safe, mark everything as optional. Okay, so you see this bank name, it can be string or undefined, which we know like maybe it is not true. You can either have this bank object or don't have. So yeah, so we want to avoid that. We just do one checking. So similarly for card, because we either card has this object or don't have this object, so we can do a single check only. And then yeah, then we don't have so many null check in our code, which is really like unnecessary check for me. So this is fourth rule, push null value to parameters. So I know this push null value to parameter is not something that you always have control as a front end. Many times your backend control this because you just consume API. But this is something that if you can decide, try to achieve this. So then we go to the next one. Avoid Rule 5, suggestion 5 is avoid cluttering your codes with inferable types. So what does it mean? So this is something that many someone that's coming from very strong type language, they may disagree with me, but I still think I'm right because I'm a speaker now. You cannot say no. So example here. So now we have a. I'll show you why. I try to persuade you why. So I have a payment. Same example again. Okay. We have channel, then amount, we have bank name, which is optional. Then we get payment description. Okay. Get payment description. Then we get the channel, the ID, the amount. Okay. There's nothing wrong here, but you see the type of channel is what? Is this tree. The ID is what? Is this number. The amount is what? Is number. Okay. Right. So someone that come with strongly typed language, I realize they may do this. They say, hey, what is the type of channel here? Type of channel is a string. What is the type of ID here? Type ID is a number. What is type of amount here? The type of amount is number. Okay. So they say they want this. Any problem with this? Well, I don't like it because it's unnecessary, right? It already can infer what you want to tell him. Well, this is something I don't like, but that's not the only problem. We'll see how later. So now with this, right, let's say suddenly backend say, hey, my ID I'm no longer number lah. Number is a bit hard lah. I want to change it to string. So change it to string. Okay. And then now your code start throwing error. Hey, this ID is not is an you say it's a number, but now it's giving me a string. So it's complaint. Then you go to change it to string. Okay. Now your code works. But do you think this is necessary? The thing is, if in the first place you don't introduce this, right, this code will not throw any error, which it shouldn't be because this is just doing a mapping. So whether this is number, this is a string, right? You see, TypeScript will be happy with the code. So this is one of the problem of you being too explicit. You're making your code too many boundary that every time you move something, right, you go to change all the boundary. So yeah, this is one example of why you shouldn't be over clutter your code with the things that TypeScript already can know. Okay, the second example is this. So I have a get Pokemon which will return me a string. Okay, and then I get Pokemon, then I console Pokemon details. Okay. Oh man, I'm sorry. I'm a bit. I forget what is my point here. sorry. Let me check my note what I was trying to. I actually forget what I want to tell you here. Sorry, forget about this. So I guess this previous example should be enough lah to tell you don't be too explicit about your types. Okay, if TypeScript can infer, let it infer. And also just now I show you like how to use scons, right? Scons can already make your code very TypeScript able to infer very good typing already. So yeah, just try to avoid if possible. Yeah, so yeah, I remember what I want to tell you already. One thing not good. There's one place that I think we should always define our type definition, which is the what do you call? Which is the function. Yeah, the function return type, right? Many times I think you should define your type definition because for example, yeah, I remember what I want to say. For example, now we have this get Pokemons, and then we fetch the data, then we throw the front end, right? Then let's say this get Pokemon data will not ever change. Most of the time it's static, right? So what we do, we want to do a catching. So let's say I create catch. Okay, I create catch, and then I check my code. if catch has have this Pokemon ID, then return the catch. Okay. Yeah. So, but here it will say error because we never tell TypeScript what is catch. So TypeScript thought this empty object. So we need to tell TypeScript, right? It's a key of a string with a Pokemon data. So it's a key of string and string. So now here, what we do is we get Pokemon, we find is it catch or not. If it's in catch, we'll return it. Else, right, what we do is we will we'll get the result and then we catch it. And then only we return it. Okay. So now, yeah, we add catching to this application. Wow, things are so nice now. But suddenly TypeScript throw error. It throw error at some other place. It says, hey, Pokemon details, blah 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 blah. Hey, property does not exist on type, blah blah blah. Well, what is this? Okay. The problem now is our catching logic has a problem because our get Pokemon function sometimes return a string, sometimes return a promise. Okay. So instead, our code here we should return promise. Oops. We should do promise resolve this. So we always return a promise of string. So our other function will not throw error. So this is a place where if you don't define types explicitly, TypeScript may give you very error, very hard to read, very unexpected. So function return type is one of the thing where even though TypeScript can infer, I think if the function is not very small, you should declare explicitly what is the return type. So if you declare explicitly, right, if I just have a error just now, I have a bug just now, TypeScript straight away catch it. It say, hey, this is not assignable. So you see our error will not leak into other place, which is unexpected. Okay, so yeah, fifth one, yeah, we have last two we quick. The sixth is prefer type to interface. Okay, this is a bit controversial, I know. So I go from everyone agree one to the one that's more controversial one. So why I say prefer type to interface, because everything that interface can do, TypeScript can do. Okay, except there are, I think, like two cases. I don't know, 2 or 3 cases that we no need to worry about. Okay, I'll show you the example that what TypeScript interface can do. This is an interface, right? A payment. And then we have this get payment. Then yeah, this is a code just now, nothing special. I can change to type, and it still works. So, and then let me see another example. Now we have an interface. Okay, interface online payment extends payment. So you see this interface, right? This payment is a type. It's not an interface, but other interface can still extend a type. So there's no difference that you use interface or use a type. You know, they have exact the same functionality. Similarly, right, interface can be implemented by class, right? You can use a class implements an interface, and then you make sure they always have some property. But you change the type, right? It will still works. It will still works. Okay, it will still works. So yeah, so for me it's like everything that interface can do, type can do. But there are something type can do, interface cannot do. Okay, what are the things? For example, union of string. This, right, I can change to a type. I can change it to a type called channel. And I can replace this with channel. Okay. Can interface do this? No, interface cannot do this. Okay, interface cannot do this. So what are the things that interface can do but type cannot do? Okay, it used to be many things here, like for example extends and for example implements, right? It used to be something that type cannot do. It's only supported for interface, but TypeScript has changed. So today all these are supported in type and interface. So and on in the meanwhile, type can do something interface cannot do. So for me, it's like type have more functionality. Just stick with one. There's no reason to use interface. Okay, but there's a few edge case that type cannot do but interface can do. Okay, so what are they? So the first thing is type cannot be merged. Let's say I declare two type. I declare the first time called shape x is string. The second type y is string. TypeScript say, hey, you define this shape twice, error. So this is usually what you want. Okay, I would On the other hand, if you don't use type, you use interface, right? You define a shape and you define an X shape. TypeScript will be happy. And then after that, right, you look at the shape, right? Then you declare some variable. You use this interface. Then you have X and Y. Actually, if you miss out, right, you would complain. So what is this thing? Why TypeScript is so weird one? So the reason why interface have this this kind of behavior, this is what we call a declaration merging. Okay, you declare two things and TypeScript help you to merge, and then the result is a combine of two things. So why is this useful? In your application code, most of the time it's not useful. Okay, most of the time you even think this is a bug, which type is doing here. It throw error when you do that. Okay, but why TypeScript introduced this? Because this is actually possible scenario in JavaScript. If you are old enough, you use jQuery, you know jQuery have a lot of like $sign dot and a plugin add additional functionality, all those things, right? So yeah, so for those library that is extensible, they need to define their types in interface. So people can go to extend their interface to add additional functionality. But usually in your application code, you actually don't want to do this because no. So far I code TypeScript, right? I never have a use case of using declaration merging in my application code. So yeah, so it has this weird behavior. So in summary, I think you should use type instead of interface. And then okay, I see some clarification on a channel. I'll straight away answer now because it's easier. I have example here. So Chidong say accept interface return types. So I think there's no reason to accept interface because even you use type, right, it is still what is a structural typing. What does it mean as structural typing? It means, right, TypeScript don't care about whether you provide more information that it needs as long as you fulfill the requirements. So assuming now I have an object. Okay, let's say it's a payment example. ID is 1, channel is cash, amount is 0. Okay, for example. So it's and then I have like name is Malcolm. Okay, customer. Okay, so is this a payment? No, it has more thing, right? Payment doesn't ask for customer, but this one has. But if you try to call the function get payment description, and then you pass this payment example, is complaining. So now here is it infer this is string. So let's say I infer this as constants. Okay. So now this is a type. Channel is cash, amount is 0, customer is Malcolm. So now this is happy. So you see, payment example actually has this customer that is not required by the payment type, but TypeScript will not complain because TypeScript is a structural type system, which means as long as you give him what he wants, he don't care about whether you have other stuff or not. Yeah, so for me, yeah, it's like type has all the good things that interface have, but it doesn't have the bad things interface have. So yeah, use type. Then the last one. Yeah, last one even more controversial. My time is running out. Let me be quick. Prefer ECMAScript features to TypeScript features. So this one I need to give you some history lesson. So TypeScript was created, right? Initially they created, it's not just introduce type system to JavaScript. The time JavaScript was also like not a lot of development. So TypeScript was also like introduced to give features that JavaScript don't have. For example, the time when TypeScript was first introduced, it doesn't have module system. So TypeScript introduced its own module system. Okay. So, but as time goes, right, actually TypeScript, as JavaScript is more powerful, have more features, TypeScript actually, they say they don't want to create their own concepts. They will just align to the ECMAScript, and they'll just add type features on top of the ECMAScript standards. So the things that TypeScript was introduced previously is considered like try to avoid is possible. And for me, I also think this is a good guideline because if you follow ECMAScript, right, technically any JavaScript they will come to a code base, they can just contribute because it is very close to JavaScript. So let me give you some example of the things that is in TypeScript but not in ECMAScript, but people still use it. The first example is enum. Okay, I don't like enum. Okay, I will tell you why. So now we have an enum, and then we use a string enum. Okay, then I have a type. Then I use a payment channel. I use this enum. Okay, and then after that, I have this function get payment description. Okay, this is all the previous example, and now I want to use it, and you will see, hey, TypeScript is complaining. What? It's complaining channel cache is not assignable to payment channel. But the thing is, you look at this, right? Actually, cache is a possible values. Cache is a possible values. But TypeScript here is actually complaining. For me, this is like kind of the things that is very weird in TypeScript world. Because in TypeScript, like as my previous example show you, TypeScript is structural type system most of the time, which means it don't really care like what are the things, how you get your things from. It don't really care are you using the same class at each aspect, as long as your object has the same structure and same type. Similarly, for me, I feel like this get payment description, this payment, as long as people can give the all the info you need, right? Why you must enforce people to use enum? There's not a good reason. So it's kind of like it's very unexpected. I always find enum weird. But I know you may complain like some of like your framework Nest.js or Angular ask you to use enum. Yeah, if they insist, then it's a framework. Of course, you use lah. But for me, if you can avoid enum. But some people say, hey, enum has some functionality also. Like enum, you can look through it, right? But if you use just now, if you use a type like payment channel, if you use a union type, you can't look through it. Well, I'll teach you some trick that actually allow you to achieve the same thing. So I define all the possible value of the string as an array. Okay, and then I assert it as a cons. So this payment channel is type of cash, credit card, and online banking. And then I can define a channel. So you see this channel, right, is I get the type of this, and then I pass it a number, which then I'll get cash, credit card, and online banking. Now, if I use this channel, okay, see, now everything works as expected, as usually. And now if you want to loop, now you have this payment channel to loop. Okay, so yeah, actually this is something that you can achieve with just string and union type. Okay, the last thing I want to bitch about is namespace. So this is what we call triple slash import. This is an old TypeScript module system. So technically, you add a triple slash, and then TypeScript will treat this as a TypeScript will treat this as a, what do you call, import. It's like ECMA import. Let me reload now. My IntelliSense is crazy already. It doesn't work anymore. Hmm. 07. Yeah, okay. Never mind. I thought I give up making works. Technically, if you've seen this, right, this is like, hey, this is like JavaScript import. What it does, right, is import this file. So this file is a namespace. So namespace is all TypeScript modules. Then how it imports is to this. So for me, if you see this, just avoid this. You can just use JavaScript import and export. Don't use namespace. People use namespace is because they use library type definition. So yeah, that's all I gonna share. So a recap. Prefer more precise than string. Use as cons. Prefer union of types than types of union. Push null value to parameter. Then use let TypeScript to info your code. Accept function returns. Then prefer type to interface. And then lastly, prefer ECMA script to TypeScript features. And then last, I want to give some credits. First is this book that I bought. It's called Effective TypeScript. So I actually steal his book title as my talk title. So it gives 60 specific ways to improve your TypeScript. I think I learned a lot from the books. Some of my idea here is just copy from the book. Some are not. Some are just my personal opinion. Yeah, so I think you should read that book if you are you write in TypeScript. And then there's also another article talk about like interface versus type alias, which it will explain to you like what I tried to explain just now. So that's all from me. Is there any question? Okay, I don't see any question. So I guess I will go to the last session of today. I have 1 minute. I'm sorry, I'm over time. I hope you can learn something from the last session. So the last session today is yeah, I'm a bit lonely now. I want to pull in Abhishek. Hello. Okay. Hi. Yeah. So no, I just want to put you in. So when I do the sharing, if you want to add on, you can just add on. Okay. The last session today. I want to share like this months on React. So it's more like the stuff that I captured down on about React recently. The first is Recoil.js. Have you heard about it, Abhishek?
Not really.
Okay, yeah. So this Recoil.js, they introduced it in one of the recent online conference. So it's a state management library outsourced by Facebook, but it's not. It's still considered experimental. And the cool thing, so they have a introductory video which is half an hour. I think you can go watch it. My summary of what is this Recoil is superpower use state. Technically, use state most of the time is local state. Then now you can still have a same API that looks like use state, but you can share the state with other component globally. So yeah, I will share the links and yeah to in the top description later. The second thing I want to share is called mock service worker. So yeah, it's called MSW mock service worker. So I actually share this in one of my previous sharing. So what is this mock service worker is it use service worker to intercept your network requests, and then it will return the JSON. So for the application code, you don't need to change single thing, and you can have a mocking features. So the good thing about mock service worker is those mock, right, you can reuse, you can use in development so that you don't need to rely on your server. You can also reuse the same mock in your tests. So your tests can also like use the same set of mocking, which is very handy. And third thing I want to share about is Remix. Have you heard about it? Remix. So Remix is not ready yet. Is by Ryan Florence and Michael Jackson of Red Router. So they try to create this meta framework. It's kind of it's at same level as like Next.js. So far nothing is out yet, so I cannot tell you whether it's good or not. But I think definitely you should sign up for their newsletter, because in their newsletter they talk about like limitation of the current React frameworks and how they plan to solve it, which I think is very good. It's like I learn stuff. And the last thing I want to share is Cypress component testing. Do you use Cypress?
Not really.
Not.
I haven't done
Okay.
any component testing using Cypress.
Okay. So this Cypress component testing is something new. It's still consider, I think it's still consider like experiments in Cypress. But technically what it does, right, is Cypress we used to be test application as a whole, like you have user navigation. But this one it behaves like the React testing library. You just mount a component and you only test a component. So the good thing about this is it's a real browser, so you can test things that is closer to real browser. Yeah, but it means also overhead lah. You need to have you need to install the Cypress binary. So yeah, that's all I want to share.
I'm sorry, few links that I shared with you, you can find them on the private chat. I sent it to you. So
Sorry.
I shared a couple of links with you on the private
Okay.
chat. StreamYard.
Yeah.
So the first one is basically a deep dive into like React context API. So anyone who wants to know more about it, or like wants to prepare for any kind of interviews and stuff, you can go and look into that. That's like a really nice deep dive into it. The other one, yeah, I mean the links will be there. It will be shared. The other one is you could go to major shout out to overreacted.io, which is a mailing list or like a website by Dan Abramov, who is one of who is the creator of Redux and is heading the Facebook team for React, and they look into how React goes on ahead. So you guys can go and check out. He has some really cool articles, and he has a really good mailing list as well, which again every day, not every day, but then in like every 2-3 days you get small bite-sized lessons in which you can really find some interesting stuff about React and how you can look into it. Heavily, I would suggest look at um, at his Twitter account. And another really, I think not a lot of people follow this kind of person, but I would encourage you guys to look into this particular link that I have asked Malcolm to share right now. It's BXJS. The full form is Build X JS, where this particular person he streams every Saturday, and he's really methodical and shares the up-to-date latest news about JavaScript world. So you can go and check out all of his episodes, and if you can subscribe on Twitch, and you'll get like notifications about every Saturday is he streams, and you can just like, while making dinner or food, because he streams during like Berlin time, and it's here at like 7 p.m. or 7:30 p.m. So you can just like make your dinner or anything while listening to his small talk. So these are like,
Wow. So this is your kind of entertainment.
yeah, these are podcasts, and this whole MCR and RMCR is kind of pretty lonely. So these are the only, yeah. So yeah, that's all from my end.
Okay, cool. So is there anything else you want to highlight? Because I guess I had nothing else already.
Yeah, I'm also I think I shared whatever I had to share, and hope others had a nice time.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, thanks for sharing about the accessibility today. Yeah, it's very
Thanks for
good.
the TypeScript. I'm gonna look into that book that you shared, because I'm
Okay,
doing like one book a month kind of challenge. So hopefully I can do that.
cool. So yeah, I think thanks everyone for showing up. So I hope you learned something today. And yeah, just remember to follow our Facebook page or our Meetup group, and you will get notified for future events. So yeah, see you next time. Bye bye.
Bye.
The awkward